Hello ladies, gentlemen, boys, girls, innies, outies and in-betweeners. My name's Dan. Welcome back to another PAP Reports. It's Wednesday, May the 13th, 2020. Today we have an update to an incident in West Midlands when a police constable was caught on CCTV punching and kicking a 15-year-old after it was claimed the boy was stopped in order to be searched for drugs because he was allegedly seen to be acting suspiciously. Well, we all know the constable was suspended after the second video of the beating of the guy on the push bike came to light. Obviously he should have been suspended after the first CCTV incident came to light, but I guess late is better than never. Well, the good news is that Gould of DPP Law, my brief and one of the country's leading action against the police solicitors, has taken up the case. I'm not going to go through the details here in this video, as I'll link to Gould's blog in the description for you to read in full, but to give you an idea, here are some quotes from the blog. I've received instructions to act on his behalf from his mother for what appears to be a totally unjustified and heinous act of violence against the boy. That kick is quite sickening and seems to me to be something akin to what you would expect a thug in a street fight to do to his opponent. That is the truly shocking event, the lies told by the officer, who obviously expected that the honourable uniform that he wears would cover up his crime. Now, I'm going to recommend going to read that article in full after watching this report. A former Lithuanian police detective, 43-year-old Valdas Raudis, has been jailed for 3 years and 8 months after admitting 3 offences, including cannabis production, although he will only serve half of the sentence before supposedly facing deportation. Valdas and co-defendant Paulius Purus appeared at Cambridge Crown Court accused of being involved in the theft of 10 vehicles worth more than £220,000 across Peterborough between June and October 2019. Cambridge Crown Court heard Raudis used his knowledge of police tactics and strategies to avoid detection. The court was told Raudis used expensive relay equipment to acquire key fob frequencies from within homes in order to bypass security systems on keyless cars. The process needs 2 people working together with £15,000 digital devices to carry out each theft. 6 cars were recovered in 4 car parks around the city, but untraced vehicles were dismantled and exported in parts to Eastern Europe and Africa. Raudis knew how the police would investigate because he had worked as a detective in a vehicle unit in Lithuania, where he had been dismissed for corruption, abuse in public office and extortion in 2011. And was also handed a suspended jail term in Germany in 2018 for dealing in stolen goods. Police also discovered a converted loft full of cannabis plants and associated paraphernalia when Raudis was arrested at his home in West Parade, Peterborough, on the 5th of March 2020. Police seem to have an affinity recently to brick walls. Over the past weeks, I've reported on 2 such tales of police vehicles making tactical contact with garden walls, and here is a third in as many weeks. Hertfordshire Constabulary are investigating the crash of one of its vehicles after it appeared to make tactical contact with a wall before overturning at around 1:35 p.m. on Tuesday the 12th of May. A spokesperson for the force said London Road in St Albans is closed following a serious traffic collision which happened at 1:35 p.m. yesterday. Drivers carrying out essential journeys are asked to find alternative routes. Police, fire and ambulance and air ambulance are in London Road following the collision which happened near Cunningham Avenue by the railway bridge. A marked police car, which was responding to an incident, overturned after hitting a brick wall. The police officer has serious injuries and has been taken to hospital by air ambulance. No one else was injured. A spokesperson from the East of England Ambulance Service also said 2 ambulances, 2 rapid response vehicles and East Anglian Air Ambulance attended the London Road St Albans this afternoon following reports of a road traffic collision involving a police car. 1 male patient was transported by road ambulance to St Mary's Hospital. Now, I don't want to detract from the fact that someone was seriously hurt, but did you notice the mistake? Hertfordshire police spokesperson said the police officer has serious injuries and has been taken to hospital by air ambulance. No one else was injured. East of England Ambulance Service spokesperson said 1 male patient was transported by road ambulance to St Mary's Hospital. How on earth do we know the truth when 2 emergency services can't even agree on how the cop was taken to hospital? I wonder how many versions of the story we will get to hear when the excuse comes out for the incident. I'd sure as hell like to know how he managed to get all the way over onto the pavement in order to hit the wall in the first place. Lord Sampson, former senior Supreme Court judge, has said in an article that there is no moral or principled justification for coercion in order to control the country. In a long but well-written article in the Daily Mail, Lord Sampson writes what a minority of us have been thinking and saying for weeks. The lockdown is, without doubt, the greatest interference with personal liberty in our history. Even going as far to say that COVID-19 is not the greatest crisis in our history, it is not even the greatest public health crisis in our history. Repeating what's been said by myself and others, especially here on the channel, but in a far more eloquent fashion, he says, it is now pointless to object to the imposition of the lockdown in the first place. It has happened. The question is, how do we now get out of it? It is a pity that the government did not ask itself that question when, in the blind panic following the delivery of Imperial College London Professor Neil Ferguson's statistical projections, it legislated the lockdown on the hoof in a late-night press conference. They now find themselves trapped by their own decisions. The government has formulated 5 tests to be satisfied before the lockdown is lifted. However, the government has formulated them in their own interest. They think that this will allow them to avoid criticism by sheltering behind the scientists, but that is just an evasion of political responsibility. Ending the lockdown is a political decision, not a scientific one. In the article, he brings up very sensitive issues, which I'm sure some people will recoil at, but it's a statement of truth and fact. He says to say that life is priceless and nothing else counts is just empty rhetoric. People say it because it is emotionally comfortable and avoids awkward dilemmas, but they don't actually believe it. We went to war in 1939 because lives were worth losing for liberty. We allow cars on the roads because lives are worth losing for convenience. We travel by air although pollution kills. We tut about it, but we willingly do it. Now there's 5 points that Lord Sampson goes through in the article in a way that some people will no doubt dislike, but the truth is the truth and facts are facts. And people who don't like the truth are the same people grassing up their neighbours while handing their liberties to the government on a silver platter. I highly recommend that you go and read the article. If you're like me and hold your rights and freedoms dear, then you will appreciate the straight talking of Lord Sampson in this public address. If, however, you melt at the slightest hint of someone disagreeing with the powers that be, because of course all they care about is you and me, then I suggest you simply go bury your head deeper in the sand and continue with this farcical abuse of powers that has in fact done very little to save lives from COVID. 49-year-old Jason Downey of Trent Close in Rainhill has been given a reduced sentence by Judge Aubrey at Liverpool Crown Court after admitting 9 counts of gross indecency with a child. Married dad of 3, Downey molested 3 young children in Highton in the 80s when he was 15. He raped a boy who was 3 or 4, raped a girl under the age of 10 and groped another girl under the age of 10. Downey's victims have had to live with the trauma of the events for decades. Judge David Aubrey QC said for many years, indeed decades, you held on to a dark secret. It was only last year that the first girl told police Downey rubbed himself against her, made her touch and masturbate him, performed sex acts on her and then raped her. The boy said Downey stripped him naked to play a man and woman game, made him perform a sex act on him and then raped him. The second girl said Downey once rubbed her bottom, but didn't want to make a victim statement as she felt too embarrassed. Downey confessed to police, said he was sorry and claimed he didn't intend to hurt his victims but couldn't help himself. We hear that all too often, don't we? Couldn't help myself. He admitted 9 counts of gross indecency with a child, 2 of which would be classified as rapes under the law today. Judge Aubrey said you took away from your 3 victims their childhood, happiness and innocence. You have scarred them all greatly and, in truth, given them a life sentence. But don't worry, clearly you won't get one of those. However, he said he had to take into account the fact Downey was just 15 at the time and the findings of a psychiatric report. Judge Aubrey said you received little or no parental support. Your parents were seldom home and it can be said you come from a dysfunctional family. The psychiatrist states that in consequence of that neglect, it is highly likely that you would not have understood your actions as being wrong and detrimental to your victims. Oh no, poor Downey. Boo-hoo. Don't that just make your heart bleed? Maybe I should go to court and get convictions I've had over the years squashed, as I've had some mad shit go on in my life as a kid. But wait, I wasn't a kiddie fiddler, so clearly I won't get the leniency of the court. Aubrey said the court cannot accept that you had no understanding to the extent that it would extinguish your culpability, but the court accepts that given your lack of development and guidance, it does reduce your culpability. He said, I'm satisfied you knew you were crossing a boundary for your own sexual gratification. Judge Aubrey said Downey had worked hard and raised a family since, without committing any further crimes that they're aware of. Although I would question as to the processes in place to protect his own children, and to see what, if anything, has been done to them. Judge Aubrey added, the court accepts that you're remorseful and you've expressed abhorrence at your wrongdoing. He said there must be a substantial reduction in the sentence to reflect Downey's then age and immaturity. He said under sentencing guidelines, he also had to bear in mind that the maximum sentence at the time for a single count of gross indecency was 10 years, while for a 15-year-old the maximum would have been 12 months in youth custody. He said he would have given him a sentence of 6 years in prison after a trial, but taking into account his guilty plea, this would be reduced to 4.5 years. 4.5 fucking years for ruining the lives of at least 3 people. Seems hardly worth it. Might as well just give him a slap on the wrist and save some taxpayers' money on bed and board. The police service of Northern Ireland is carrying out an internal inquiry after dozens of police constables failed to report for duty in Londonderry and Strabane over a 2-week period in April. I probably pronounced Strabane wrong, by the way. On one shift, as many as 28 constables failed to show up with suggestions that they were told that they could be on standby from home. It's believed the constables were told by inspectors that they could be at home without the knowledge of more senior commanders. The area's district commander, Chief Superintendent Emma Bond, said the practice is not one that had been endorsed by the senior management of the police and now has been brought to an immediate end. During this period, police numbers on duty did not dip below pre-COVID levels, but the consequence was that an enhanced level of policing was not achieved. An examination of the circumstances that led to the officers being detailed to stay at home has commenced to establish how this happened and establish if any officers have done anything wrong. As well as facing potential disciplinary action, police could have to repay wages or take the days they missed as annual leave. A man arrested by Lancashire police on suspicion of a public order offence has been given a curfew for 8 weeks after appearing at Blackburn Magistrates Court. 30-year-old Lee Robert Heppel was arrested at an address in Darwin. It said that he was agitated and that he squared up to a police constable saying he was going to put bricks through the window of the property as soon as the police left, and so the police arrested him. Now don't worry, I'm getting to the relevant point why this story has been included in this report. Heppel was taken to the station and put in a cell where he is said to have flooded the cell and spat on the spy hole in the door, which, by the way, is a thick piece of glass in most cases. District Judge Joanne Hurst said, during the current health crisis, spitting at the police station overshadows the offence for which you were originally arrested. Blackburn magistrates heard the behaviour of Lee Robert Heppel required £150 deep clean of the cell. So I'm finding myself asking the question, are the cells not being cleaned after every use? I mean, he may well have been caught spitting, but that's not to say that others haven't spat in the cells, which in fact makes it more disturbing that the police say that it was cleaned only because they caught him doing it. I would imagine that in the current crisis, the cells should be thoroughly cleaned after every use anyway, and if they suggest that a thorough cleaning is only carried out if they see it needs doing, they should be reminded that they ain't going to see no virus. So should be getting someone in there after every visitor and not making a fuss about it just because they caught someone doing it. Something for those of you who have seen reports on my channel about Muslims breaking lockdown restrictions. You know, the ones that call me a racist for highlighting it. Racist. Lol. Around 300 ultra-Orthodox Jews were pictured outside a housing estate in Stamford Hill, North London, as they celebrated Lag BaOmer, I think that's how you pronounce it, the religious festival. The Metropolitan Police confirmed police did attend the gathering and engage with those present to remind them of their responsibilities under the current regulations. It is said to have raised fears that the government has not done enough to explain the lockdown measures to people in the ultra-Orthodox community, who do not often engage with traditional media and whose primary language is Yiddish. A spokesman for the Jewish Community Council said pictures of people not following social distancing orders are always very disturbing, but added they do not represent the community where a majority are carefully obeying the laws. As per in any community, you will sadly always find a handful of people who are not following the laws and ultimately attracts media attention. Isn't it weird how this spokesperson keeps calling them laws? Stamford Hill locals on social media complained of large gatherings and loud music, with many asking how the police could let it go on. I imagine it's the same way they allow, or at least allowed, as I'm not entirely sure if it's still open, Muslims to congregate en masse at mosques for their prayers. One person wrote on Twitter, why oh why has this allowed to happen late into last night and all of today? This area has been so severely affected by the virus. Gatherings like this are so dangerous for the Orthodox community and their neighbours too. I mean, people like you really need to keep up with the news. The virus has been said for a while now to be in homes. Do you know what I mean? Why do people keep forgetting that just because they're indoors, they're not going to catch something? Jewish leaders back in March warned that messages about the risks of coronavirus were not reaching people in the ultra-Orthodox community. At the time, Rabbi Abraham Pinter told The Guardian that most people were heeding the guidelines, but he warned the issue I'm concerned about is that the government is, to a certain degree, abdicating responsibility. People need to be told. Just 3 weeks after issuing his warning, Rabbi Pinter, who served as a local councillor in Stamford Hill, died after contracting coronavirus. But not from coronavirus. Besides, it's unlikely he was tested for it anyway, as, you know, and no doubt based on an assumption that he had it rather than proof that he had it. Hampshire police have received information that a mass gathering will be taking place in Southampton this coming weekend. Police are said to be looking into organisers behind the event. A Hampshire police spokeswoman said, "We are currently reviewing information we have received regarding a mass gathering being organised in Southampton this coming weekend. We are really grateful to those who contacted us about this, and we will continue to assess the information we have in the coming days. Our response," she says, "will be in line with the Health Protection Coronavirus Restrictions England Regulations 2020, which currently prohibits large gatherings of people to limit the spread of COVID-19. In fact, flyers promoting the mass gatherings have been floating around not just in Hampshire, but in London, Nottingham, Manchester, Sheffield, Cardiff, Edinburgh, Plymouth and Barnstable in Devon. In total, flyers are promoting what they're calling illegal mass gathering protests at 60 UK locations, and they're being shared online across conspiracy theory groups. In the posters circulating on social media over the past few days, the organisers have boasted the events will be the largest mass gathering since the lockdown. The actual organiser is not clear, but is believed to be linked to the UK Freedom Movement Facebook page. The legitimacy of the flyers has not yet been verified. However, police forces are said to be taking them seriously, with Nottinghamshire saying it has contingency plans in place and Hampshire confirming it is reviewing information it has received. The posters are headlined UK mass gathering and said, "We say no to the coronavirus bill, no to mandatory vaccines, no to the new normal and no to the unlawful lockdown." Well folks, I think this next story will be one you will be certainly interested in, if that last one interested you. The National Police Chiefs Council and the College of Policing has put out updated guidance for police in England and Wales. The changes to the guidance, in line with the changes to the law, means that police in England have no power to enforce 2 metre distancing. However, in Wales, due to the police adhering to the First Minister's regulation, 2 metre distancing is enforceable. As for Scotland and Northern Ireland, they will either be adhering to existing rules or writing their own amendments. In England, however, exercise is no longer limited to once a day, which it wasn't anyway, and those who want to go fishing are able to do so, so long as certain social distancing requirements are met. So the reports are saying, although it's unenforceable. Golf courses, outdoor tennis and basketball courts can be used, and people can also swim in lakes and in the sea. I wonder what the lagoon Derbyshire Police ruined with black dye looks like at the moment. However, gathering with more than one member of another household is still said to be forbidden. Not my words, by the way. Along with swimming in a public pool, using a playground or outdoor gym, and exercising in indoor leisure centres or facilities. Now, the legislation actually states about businesses which is enforceable, but as for gatherings with more than one member of another household, still said to be forbidden, isn't enforceable. Driving to outdoor open spaces, either alone or with members of your household, is allowed, as well as travelling to beaches or beauty spots in England. Similarly, travelling to the countryside is also permitted. Going for a picnic, sunbathing and relaxing in a public place is also now allowed in England. So, with this still rather confusing message from the government and the mainstream media, and with police stating in their guidance to all forces in England and Wales that it's unenforceable, this is going to make for a very interesting time, and I suggest you ensure that if you do see a police constable in your vicinity, get your camera out ready, because I feel there's going to be a lot of great videos to come that you should all take and send to me to share for you. I'm going to go through the new guidance, the new police guidance, in another video. Big thank you to channel Patreon supporters. Your support is truly appreciated. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Please like, share, comment and subscribe. Let me know your thoughts, as I know many of you will. And until next time, stay safe, look after each other, film the police and other officials. Oh yeah, and get out and enjoy the sunshine. Good night, all. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you like the content and you'd like to help support the channel, you can do so. In the description of every video there are some links to ways that you're able to help support the channel so I can continue putting out content. If you're unable to help us in that way, hit that subscribe button up the top there. If you haven't already, become a subscriber. That is support enough. Share the videos, comment, like, it all helps. If you're looking for something else to watch, up top there is my latest video. Down the bottom there is a video that YouTube recommends for you.